I think you could say that the Q4 2023 big push for board games on crowdfunding is here, and GameFound is on fire, Kickstarter is on fire. There's a lot going on. I'm actually going to dive into a select few today, and then also tell you a big update and some opinion piece a bit on Blacklist Games and their secret admirer slash company that they say exists but that hasn't said anything. We'll talk about all that at the end. Okay, so the first thing is just a quick announcement. I'm not actually proud of this necessarily, but I am now a Superbacker. Now, you might wonder why I am not a Superbacker before now. And to tell you the truth, it's because I typically invest heavily in fewer games, I guess, than less and, more or something like that, I guess. Also, I do only spend Patreon money on it, and so any support there is what drives that, and that gets eaten up pretty quick with all these expensive games. So, if you want to see more covered, if you want to see me be a super duper backer, then of course you can support. Link is down in the description below, but I'm not asking for that. Really, I'm now a super backer for what it's worth. I actually kind of dreaded this email. I knew it was coming. Part of it also is I'm a heavy late pledger, so I'll do a lot of late pledges as well. Just because I tend to put everything to the last minute. Hence why even some of the things I back, typically I don't fill the pledge manager in until the last minute. Just a bad habit on my part, I think. Something about my personality, probably. Moving on from that, DCeased is here. So let's talk about DCeased, a Zombicide game from Come On. It's going to keep running up. It's probably around 500,000 almost now. What does it get? When is it? At this point, I should just refresh. So that needs to go up quicker. 490,000. Now, that doesn't seem like a lot, and it's not, compared to what, Marvel was doing and stuff like that. There are 5,000 backers. That is very good. It's very easy to miss the mark on a lot of these and try and figure out, what is actually successful, right? Now, it's at 500,000, just about 5,000 backers, 15 days to go. This is obviously, as you can see, a much smaller thing than they did with Marvel Zombies. Marvel Zombies, they had 2 big boxes, and then they also had the giant bigature, right? So you had Galactus there, being, huge and multi-part where you could make him a zombie or not a zombie, stuff like that. It was massive. You could spend a ton of money really early on. This one you can't. It's literally the $130. Now, I will say that it does kind of hurt me a little bit that Zombicide now is $130 base price. That has gone up, and I've said in previous videos, as I've seen it being trended, that it was 90, and then it was 100, and it was 110, then it was 120. 120 was super popular for a long time. Now we're starting to see this 130 as like a normal crowdfunded board game with miniatures price. And that's a lot. That's tough. Now, of note, 3,489 people are backing this, which means the other people to bring it up to 5,000 are dollar pledgers. This is something Come On kind of did to themselves by betraying the trust of people before, where they would get all your money and then charge you a whole bunch more in shipping. Now, as far as I'm concerned, they haven't done that lately, but it definitely spawned the dollar club, as it was called for a long time there, where people were just backing out $1. And I totally get it. You do what you need to do to stay safe, of course. I don't mind going for at least the 130. So I'm kind of okay with that. It's if you go really heavy, often it's better to up it in the pledge manager than on the crowdfunding page. So let's go on and talk about this a little bit, because it is different, but not too different. It looks like it will support crossover with Marvel Zombies. I doubt they'll ever say that, though. Most often, IP holders don't want you conflating it with other IP. You don't want to step on any toes. You don't want to make any promises like that. You just want to focus on your IP. So they're going to want 100% of this campaign to be focused on DC, not on Marvel. So that's typically the case. Now, if anything was going to combine, it would be those two. They've done it before in the past, but it's pretty rare. It's normally a big event. They're not going to do it for some board game company, right? It's just not going to happen. So this is going to be DC only, but it looks like it will support it. That being said, also, heroes are the main one here. So you actually get heroes right off the bat. You get Batman, Wonder Woman, Cyborg, Green Arrow, Green Canary. You'd have to read the comic to understand how that happens. The Flash, Lex Luthor, and Hawkgirl. Now, these two are kind of an odd selection just because they're not in the mainline DCeased run, but they are in some of the off ones. The off ones, they cover all sorts of different people and what they did during this time. But these are all pretty core. The Cyborg gets kind of out of the picture pretty early on, but they're so important to the story. So this isn't quite following it exact, but that's okay. Either way, you also have some zombie versions Catwoman, Martian Manhunter, Hawkman, Superman, Aquaman, and Green Lantern. So all that's super cool to see. And then you have these LexCorp troopers. It makes it a little bit more believable on how even a walker could affect you. Typically, it's also a whole bunch of them in the story as well. But that's also how you get the brutes and the runners and stuff like that as well. You have the bystanders, of course. And then, of course, you also have like interactive objects and stuff like that, which are changing things a bit. Now, if I scroll down here, you're going to see the actual stretch goals. And one thing that's interesting to note, so we have Mara here. That was day one, a bystander card. It's weird that Mara's a bystander, but, you know, whatever. You got Blue Beetle, you get Booster Gold, you get Steel. Some of these, like, I don't remember. And I've now read all but the newest DCeased. And so some of these I don't recognize being in there, but maybe they're in the newer ones. Wonder Girl, Fire, and Hero Aquaman coming out. So it looks like we are going to get hero versions of the zombie ones, which probably means we'll get zombie versions of the hero ones. So, though not all of them do turn into zombies, at least in the comic, that doesn't mean it can't happen here. Either way, that's where we're at. And then if you look at the shipping information, it's the typical, you know, huge amount that they're saying. So the anti-life pledge is the core one, and they're saying core to most states will be $34 to $46. So, yeah, pretty darn pricey, which means that it just goes up from here. So what you see here, if you're pledging more, right, you start adding 2 expansions, expect to double it. Like, it's going to get pretty big by the time you get to the all-in. So just know that Command does not subsidize any of this. You're going to be paying full price for the shipping. It just is what it is. Look, I mean, you do what you want with your money. I just want to let you guys know. That's what you're getting into, okay? As you can see, it's so racing. It launched in a weird time. It launched at 3 p.m. my time, and most of them launch around 8 a.m. my time. So it's kind of weird to see this launch so late. I don't know what the exact reasoning of that was for, but I'm looking forward to seeing the rest of it. I'll cover it for you guys, obviously, when it happens. Bullet Universe is by level 99. They are doing more bullet shoot 'em up puzzle action stuff. This trailer is kind of wild. It's all in Japanese, and they get really excited about it. I don't know. It's kind of odd. It's a card game that also does like some like puzzle stuff with the, you'll see the, scroll down here. You can see them right here. All these pattern cards, right? And that's kind of what drives the game there. This is just 2 expansions, but they like slot in, so they just add new stuff. This adds some cats and some like magic anime girl stuff going on. What this is an extension to the already existing game, of course, and it's $25 per pack. You get about 90 cards in each pack. That being said, one thing to note on this, so the price, you can kind of get that. We're going to be looking at Singularity here next. I want to talk about the price there, so that's why I'm kind of focusing on this. $25 gets you this, which is quite a few cards. However, do note that it's not like there's a whole lot of like crazy different art or whatever. As you see, most of these are just like pattern cards and stuff like that, right? So like this is not something you need to pay an artist to like do an original work for. So much cheaper to make this many like more generic looking cards than like full art stuff. So that's definitely there. I don't agree with the $5 support. I think that should just be $1. I don't even think it should be $1 on GameFound. I don't think there should be a price to it at all when it comes to entering the Pledge Manager and stuff like that. But if you want to do that, that's fine to log off the Pledge Manager. At least GameFound improved on this somewhat, where you can comment and stuff without even putting in the $1. The $1 is just working around Kickstarter rules, because Kickstarter doesn't allow a free follow and free comment stuff, so you have to charge something. Charging the $5 over one, I don't understand that much at all. I don't agree with that. I know there's a cost to importing customers into a Pledge Manager, and so sometimes I try to offset that. As far as I'm concerned, I think that's a cost of doing business. You still want that as low as possible. Either way, there you go. $35 for the base game, though. That's actually not too bad at all. So if you do need the base game along with these expansions, you can get that. $45 for the 2 expansions. And see, that's where the price gets kind of funny. It's like these 2 expansions are more than the whole base game, right? Which gets kind of weird when you start doing that. $80 gets you all of those combined, which is probably what I would think a lot of people would want. But you see here, actually, a lot of people are just returning backers. So that's kind of the majority of it. Otherwise, you're going to get Smattering and a few others. Most of it is just, if you have Bullet, now you want this. That seems to be the case here. Next up, Singularity. 100,000. So they broke the 100,000. They're at 600 backers. Now, if you recall, they were at like 6,500 people that were following it or whatever. So definitely the translation between followers and backers is not a one-to-one. I've yet to see that actually be a good leading example of it, unless you release a lot of information like pricing, I feel. Because a lot of times people follow it because it's free to follow it, but they're not actually like serious about it. if you do an early follow, the people are going to follow it and then not touch it again. They're not going to look at your updates or anything like that. So, and then until they see the campaign. So if you have that follow button available, when you actually show a lot of the campaign, that's when you get people that are actually more interested in it. My opinion on that. 23 days left to go, so it's a very long one. They are doing some time-based things. So what is going on with this? Now I have a review. I'll go and link to it down in the description below. I just released it yesterday, or I guess today. Yesterday, your yesterday, when this actually launched. This just launched today. They do have a quote of that here. Obviously, I didn't accept any money or anything like that. They just sent me the product and I reviewed it because it looks cool. It's done by the same artist that did Madara stuff. A lot of the Madara stuff was from here, and it looks great. They're updating this with each stretch goal, which I think is kind of cool as well. Looks like they're about to unlock that. It's a new common card. And they do have some like early bird, you know, stuff like that or whatever, which is kind of cool. It's $55 for about 180-ish cards. And again, most all of that is all unique cards. There aren't any repeats here at all. All of these are unique pieces of art. In fact, the only repeated art really in this entire game is the Singularity fragments. Other than that, it's all unique pieces, which is pretty cool, I think. Plus, obviously, the tokens, stuff like that, too. Now, I have seen some talk about this booster pack, so I'm going to talk about that a little bit. You can think of this booster pack as what Awakened Realms includes when they tease their next game with like a booklet or something like that, or maybe even akin to the mystery item that you get from your Oathsworn package, or perhaps even the cards that you get underneath the tray in Townsfolk Tussle. I don't know exactly how much is involved when it comes to the gameplay itself of this, but essentially this is a tease for where Singularity is heading. You unlock this either by opening it when you get it, because there's no such thing as board game police that are going to arrest you for it, or by getting a different Singularity things, which have you essentially do achievements throughout the game, just to help, you know, you try different parts of the game and experience all that, which is, I think, kind of cool. Now, the problem is right afterwards, right? So I think the reason this didn't get as many people is not so much, a lot of people are going to be talking about the shipping. So the shipping is pretty expensive. You see right here, to get the Architects Edition for the US, it's about $40. But as you can see, that gets to $140 for Alaska and Hawaii, right? So they have some like huge outliers. And of course, then there's VAT on top of this. So of course, the UK paying $40 plus VAT, that gets kind of a bit. If you're in Norway, so it's like $60 plus VAT. Like it gets pretty expensive, right? But I think more than that, one of the problems is not showing what you're getting. In other words, people can excuse any price if they know what they're getting. So here's this incursion. Now, what this adds is kind of like a solo co-op kind of thing. It's a lot like Marvel Champions, where you have your deck with your tokens and stuff like that. You're going against this boss, right? Very common thing to do, 10 health, you know, per player kind of thing. And I'm assuming they do different things. But I can only assume because this is what they show. I have no idea what's in here. They show 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 cards and 2 damage tokens. I don't know what that means. Do these come with different decks? How many cards are this? This is a $40 expansion, and I have no idea what's in this, and that's a problem. And they do this with everything. So then they have the expansion drives, which looks to be just a deck, but they said sometimes there's more than that. So does that mean there's only 20 cards? Because you have 5 characters, and each character has 3 cards each, making 20. So is it just 20 cards, maybe plus a few more? I don't know. It's kind of hard to tell exactly what's going on there. So that's the problem. It's just hard to know what you're actually getting. And they continue not to list this. For instance, here's this deluxe Scorpion box. It's a beautiful looking storage box. It looks like it works great. It has room for like pre-made decks and stuff like that, and your neoprene mats even and whatnot. It's got acrylic tokens in it. It's beautiful. But even this, when they actually like do the breakdown, I think it might actually be in here. When they break it down, yeah, right here, they're just listing the core content. So that's not everything, right? Plus all the other stuff that we haven't shown you any card count on or anything like that. So it is kind of rough in that respect. And I think adding more of that would help people decide if it's worth or not. I think, if nothing else, a $55 core box, that's what I reviewed. It was super awesome, totally worth it in my opinion. Right now, I am backing at the Architect Edition, but that's assuming they do share more information. If not, I think my morals, if nothing else, will say, I don't like buying something I don't know about. So I'll update that in the Pledge Manager if they don't release actual like card counts for this kind of stuff, so I know what it is I'm actually buying. But it looks pretty good. It looks like there's a lot of variety to it. I really enjoyed the game. is kind of pricey. Next up, we have Gates of Niflheim. This is by Blacklist Games, and they're doing quite well. 47,000 raised, 427 backers. I think that's a great amount of backers. As you see, the minis are beautiful, but you don't have to have minis. You can use standees. It's totally fine. In fact, they have a Traveler edition, so let's take a look at that. I think that's pretty cool. You're playing on a little, like a booklet thing, and then you have your standees and your tokens, and you have your board with your items being these little tokens, which are kind of cool. It kind of reminds me of Reichbusters a little bit. Seems to actually work pretty well, though. They have some good information on there. They just kind of cram it in there. So if you, let's say your eyesight isn't as great as it used to be, might have a little trouble kind of seeing all the little stuff there, my opinion. All right, so let's see. Oh, yeah, people are liking it, but of course it's all just kind of BGG stuff. It's not really like a lot of like reviewers sent out necessarily. So over here, 30 plus scenarios. I kind of already covered that. I've covered this a little bit. Let's go and look at the pledges, actually. Let's go ahead and do this. So it's $144 for the deluxe pledge. That does give you the minis. You still get the standees, and you get kind of, you know, a nice box with them all and stuff like that too. Otherwise, you actually have a little bit of a $1 pledge, which is kind of funny. It's actually 74 cents when translated to USD, which is kind of funny. The print and play is $14. They have a travel set that, as you can see, just uses a few little things. It's kind of a shortened version of it, $35. I think that's pretty neat. 25 people also do, I guess. And then the box set with the standees only, 149, so quite a few there, about 60 USD on that one. So actually even less. So see, it's actually the translation's even better USD right now. So it's 56 bucks. They are doing some unlocks, and they're doing the minis, and they're also doing, you know, print and play and PDFs and stuff like that. They're doing a whole bunch of a smattering of things by the looks of it. All right, let's do the Firesiege. This is another one that had quite a few backers, and it only quite a few followers, thousands, and translated to 235 backers. Like I said, I think the less information you share, especially when it comes to price, the more that number's kind of meaningless. And so I would highly encourage, I don't know if GameFound allows you to have it without the follow, but it almost seems like you need to put that follow button on when you're actually ready to actually show more information. Otherwise, I don't really know the benefit of it. I've not seen any data that leads me to believe one way or the other. GameFound might have some data on it. It'd be interesting to hear maybe Alex share that at some point if there is some information on that. But anyway, right now that's at about 30,000. They're wanting 53,000, so they're a little over half funded, so they could still certainly do that. People who play it seem to love it, which I think is awesome. I think one of the issues some people have is it's a lot different in the game than necessarily what it looks like on the page. And that's a problem, I think, of scale more than anything. So you can see here that the minis, right, when we get to like these minis here, and the reason that so many of them, like this bow is this thick, is because it ends up looking about that thick when it's shrunk down so small. That's why everything is so kind of big and chunky. That being said, then they make the decision to like put individual fingers over a face attached to a chain, and there's no way that's going to translate. So it's kind of a smattering of good decisions, I think bad decisions, sculpt design-wise, which people saying that how much they love it and that it's a lot of fun, which is kind of cool. So you can see right there's the bow, right? It doesn't actually look too bad when the mini's like that big, right? It's really small scale miniatures. Just know that going in. But then they'll make the renders like really big, which is kind of funny. They do have a really long scroll here, and it does take a long time to, I mean, they fluff it up with like pictures, with like a whole like headers and footers full of art and stuff like that, and then really big font, which is kind of cool. The stretch pay here, I'm so undecided on that. I know Alex was mentioning this just the other day around how he's not too sure how he feels about that. I think we all kind of feel that way. I personally, actually, for my individual like purpose of having a budget each month that gets repeated through Patreon that I can kind of count on, I can budget that really, really well with something like stretch pay while keeping a buffer for like Kickstarter that doesn't allow it, right? And that actually works kind of nice for me, because I can actually like literally budget it out for a few months, as opposed to like, oh, this is a big one here, so that comes there, and then I have to late pledge that. Like I said, I late pledge a lot because of stuff like that. If I go all in on DCeased, that means I'm not doing something else, right? So that does actually help my particular use case. Most people, I don't think, have a monthly set budget that's big enough to warrant something like that, right? I mean, it's just not the case. They're not running a whole YouTube channel on this thing, and that's understandable. So I can kind of understand that it's a little weird that they're very focused on hey, if you actually spend more, like it's totally better, so spend more, right? And I mean, in a way, it kind of is. So if you do this, you don't get stretch pay. All right. Actually, it says right here, $60 is still 20. So I'm not sure what this is. It says if you over €100, but I guess that's €71. So I don't know what the heck's going on there. 55, 65 euro, whatever. Still says like it's stretch pay, so they need to update that then if that's the case. Either way, I know that's something that people are kind of looking at. I also don't know how I feel, and I'm starting to get, I mean, I'm getting a little tired of campaigns where it's like, oh, we can't just make a game. We have to make a game and like 8 different expansions, right? Like, it just seems like a lot to me. Either way, I think a few of those things are coming into play here. This is nice. I like the fact that they really label what the upgrade is. I think that's kind of cool. I do dig that. Like, oh, this is gameplay. Oh, this is a luxury upgrade, stuff like that. Again, just a really big scroll. You're only just now seeing this after you've already seen the pledge levels above, so you're kind of already know that information. And then here's another picture here, and here's another big header here, and now we're finally seeing what's even in the game, right? So it's maybe not the best campaign either, but and again, like there's no way at that scale you're getting all that information there, detail wise. Either way, about $130. Looks like it's a fun game that people have really enjoyed. It's up to you on whether or not it's worth it. Next up, we have another Dominate and Delegate update. I know how much you guys liked this last time, and I wanted to share it this time. This is a crazy, I mean, I'm in love with this style of update. Wouldn't mind necessarily a little bit that's also like fluff, but there needs to be this kind of like bullet point, here's the highlights, and like legit bullet points. Tooling cost for plastic figures is paid 21,000 USD. Like, I know right away, bam, he just spent that money. That's great. He made 58, right? Euro, 58,000 euro. I forget what that was in the US, but either way, it's really nice to see that. Boom. Hey, we're using a long pack. Mold development agreement signed. We paid the 21,000. White samples started. Right pledge manager is online and in test mode. Like, it's just boom, boom, boom. I know exactly what. It didn't take up a whole bunch of my time as somebody who makes videos like this and has just spent, just now even, hours looking over campaigns and reading updates and following up on comments and seeing what people are saying, what people are asking, and doing all that stuff. An update like this, I love it. I hope more people start doing this, even in their normal updates. Even if you want to do the whole normal thing, just having that bullet point right up front for, let's do a TLDR and have it be legit enough to where you tell me how much in tooling costs you just paid. I would love you for that, and I will give you a shout out on my channel if you do that, just like I did that. That is great. It's also nice to see a game that was actually completed and just needed the crowdfunding to actually produce it, which they raised it, and now they're producing it. I mean, what a concept. What a straightforward guy. I love that. Okay. All right, so Blacklist Games. That's probably why some of you are even on this video. So let's go ahead and discuss it. If you didn't know, quick update. Blacklist Games kind of famously ran out of money when it came to actually delivering a lot of their games. They kept making campaigns to try and make up the campaigns or the lack of funds, just like Mythic Games and stuff like that. Failed to make enough even still, and so still couldn't deliver, and are now multiple campaigns kind of unfulfilled. There were no shows at their booth at Gen Con. It was just, it's a bad situation, right? Like, not good. So they made this update on Facebook, and a lot of people notice. Like, a lot of people are like, hey, what's going on here? And then they're like sharing this update on other campaigns. Oh, we'll go over it. Okay, so Blacklist Games says they want to answer some questions without breaching a contract with the new publisher. That's right. If you didn't know, there's a new publisher for Aftershock, at least. I don't know how much more pertains. I believe it's just Aftershock, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. Not just Aftershock, because they released an Indiegogo one. I'll talk about that as well, but it's the Street Master series. We gave them our word to wait for their official press release or update rather than releasing any information on their behalf. The games have been in our factory warehouse in China for quite some time. In fact, they even have they had them open up to make sure there was no mold. There's no mold, but they've just been sitting there being paid for to be stored in the factory, or probably out of the factory space at this point now, and in an external building in China for a long time, so for a while now. They just haven't been able to deliver it. We have signed with a publisher who will be announcing and taking over the complete fulfillment of this campaign. So that's what's going on with this particular one, and it will include some Aftershock stuff. Now, they signed this Friday, July 21st. So you might be asking, why am I just now hearing about this? If you signed this forever ago, why has this not been a thing? Well, it's partly because of this part up here, right? That they don't want to breach your contract and that they were told to essentially wait for the press release. The problem is the press release never freaking came, okay? So let's go ahead and see what's going on with that. They're talking about like, hey, they're working on it. They're working on all this stuff. We'll talk about that. So here is the Street Masters Aftershock. This was the last one put on Kickstarter before, obviously, they were turned off of Kickstarter or not able to do that. And as you can see, the very first comment here, since all of us weren't as stupid to throw money at these scammers over at Indiegogo, I'll talk about that in a moment, they seem to have been too scared to update here as well. I simply share the mail update. My opinion stands. We have been had, and that's that. People have been lied to enough, strung along enough, BS'd enough in updates to where it's kind of hard to believe the boy who cried wolf, if that makes sense. Especially this whole like, oh, there's a company and I just can't tell you about them. I think there is a company. I think there is, but we'll dive into that. So yeah, these people, these 2,000, almost 3,000 backers didn't get an update, which is unfortunate. But if you go to Indiegogo, which by the way, if you're interested in Street Masters Tide of the Dragon, you might also be interested in self-refeeding effective odor control for your cat poop, which I think might be a little fitting for Blacklist Games. There's also whatever this is. I'm not even gonna. I don't know. I don't know what that's going on there. Okay, so anyway. They released this on Indiegogo to try and get more funds. We know this looking back, hindsight 2020. They were out of funds. They didn't have enough money. They raised this. They raised another $286,000 and still didn't deliver. It's amazing how much these companies can squander their money. It's really impressive. Really impressive. Where the money goes, I don't know, but it didn't go to delivering this to backers apparently. Scroll down here. Aaron said this one day ago because there was the update on here. This is where it's a copy paste from the Facebook. And here he says, I can't see a single reason why, if a contract has been signed, the new publisher can't just come out and say, we are taking over, more details to follow. So that's where they're like, I don't know if this is like BS or not. Like why would you not say anything for months and months and months? I'm going to actually go back to the Facebook thing here because they actually do kind of talk about that. All right. So if I scroll down here, it says here, although per agreement, I was not allowed to post any updates that specifically discussed who the publisher is or their internal fulfillment status. The information has been in our updates, answered in the comment threads, and more conversely on our website in the updates and FAQ sections. Well, you guys know me. Let's go find out. So here is their FAQ, and right up here, it's a big old FAQ for all the different games. And if you go under the Street Masters, right here, you have almost a copy paste for what was said here. You even have this list here of stuff that they need and all this. This is on here. That being said, again, you guys know me. This is here now. Was it here before? Well, off to the way back time machine we go. In this case, the only capture I have, the earliest capture I have of this is February 7th of this year. And in February 7th, they had, scroll down here, new company, earliest they can do is March. Now, they still have that whole March thing. They haven't been updating that, right, in a while. So obviously, they expected this to go a lot quicker, and it just hasn't. But they did add that, and they've had it here for a while. Now, this isn't the whole thing, right? This is just a short little thing. So since it didn't hit March, they didn't update that, but they did add a whole lot more information. So this has been up there in some of the updates, has been up there in the FAQ that totally everybody's going to. It hasn't been communicated the best, but like it kind of has been there. So they have kind of been saying that. Additionally, going back over to this update here, after talking to them briefly, they are working towards getting everything ready to make their announcement, and more importantly, to have it be one that explains what is already happening towards fulfillment, rather than a plan and more waiting for the next batch of information. In other words, this company is really trying to actually get the ball rolling on fulfillment, and that's what they need to get going, and then they'll write an update. Until then, they didn't want to really make a statement at all, because then you'd just be sitting there waiting for them to say more, and they'd have to start updating you. Better to just not update you to begin with and work silently behind the scenes for a while is kind of, I guess, what they're going for there. In my opinion, personal opinion here, if you're this far behind on any campaign for any reason and you're responsible, including if you bought the responsibility, communication frequently and thoroughly and transparently are so important to any goodwill. It's not just enough to do the work. You have to communicate that you're doing the work. It is now so important. That month minimum might be even less than that. Tell me every week you just had 40 hours, supposedly, of work. If you're working just what a normal guy does flipping burgers for a living, you can at least tell me what you did in those 40 hours. If you didn't do enough in 40 hours, then tell me, hey, I didn't work on this week. You got to communicate. It's super important. It really, really is. So I do not agree with that at all. I think they should have updated you right away saying, hey, we're here, but we're going to be working on it. We'll let you know every month kind of how that progress is going. And then just do that. Even that would be good. And you'd have so much good graces instead of this unbelieving crowd that now already has a negative feeling towards your company before they even know who the company is. Now, there is a little bit more in this FAQ. If I can find it right here, they do start talking about, hey, who is it, right? Like who is this? Now they won't say who it is, but they will say that they've seen 7 listed by commenters, and one of them was the company. They've also said that the app is moving too, and if you know that, then that you could probably get a pretty good guess on who owns it. So it has something to do with an app. And it's something that one of you guys have mentioned. If you have an idea of who it is, please do let me know. I haven't searched their Discord and all this other stuff. I've done some research here, but if you have some information on who you think it is, either comment down below, send me an email, let me know, if nothing else, so I can have that, flavor my speech going forward. But it's some company that has their own campaigns and stuff. So they're a crowdfunding company as well that have, for whatever reason, taken this fulfillment on specific for Street Masters. I'm assuming they want the IP, and they got the IP pretty cheap if they deliver the old one too, which is fine because they can't use IP until it's delivered anyway, or people are gonna have a bad attitude. So it kind of makes sense. It might actually be a good deal. I don't know. All right, one more thing. Scrolling down here, there is a general question: will Blacklist Games produce new games? They said yes, and I think this is one of the worst things I've read Blacklist Games ever say, ever. This might be a bit of a hard take on this, and you guys let me know your opinion, of course. But I believe companies like Blacklist Games, whether they, in their heart of hearts, they try it or not, it almost doesn't matter. They have done so much damage to this industry by just existing still at this point, that the worst thing they can do to the board game industry is continue to exist. I know a lot of you guys feel the same way about Mythic Games as well. And I get where you're coming from on that. It's like the more you drag on this and the more you remind people about how unsafe it is, about how they're not guaranteed stuff, about how they can be lied to. Like that's what they see when they see Blacklist Games or Mythic Games or any of these other companies like this. And it's one of the worst things you could possibly do is continue. That just hurts the industry. And as much as I appreciate you wanting to make games and all that kind of stuff, and I get it, you had your shot, right? And you made things worse, is what you ended up doing. And it sucks to say that, but I actively do not want to see another Blacklist Games game on any crowdfunding ever again. I don't think that's a positive thing for the industry. I think the industry needs to move on and not continue to limp along with reminders of how much distrust us consumers should have with these companies. Because I don't think that's good for the developers either. You guys, they're peers, right? Although I'm cagey to even say that because that almost seems like you're associated with them. Legitimate board game developers that are honestly making games and delivering them want their backers to feel confident in their ability to run their business. And they're showing that they can. But then here comes Blacklist Games over here. Hey, here's another Indiegogo because we got kicked out of Kickstarter. So now we launched this one. And even after making 300,000 more almost, we still didn't deliver. That's not a good example. Like, go away. I'm trying to do my thing here and I'm actually doing it. You go play pretend over there, right? It's not a good look for the industry at large. And I don't think Blacklist Games should continue to make games. I think that's a terrible idea. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And of course, there's some good games, guys. We got DCeased. Just next week, we have the Horizon Zero Dawn. We have that one coming up, the Seeds of Rebellion. That'll be kind of cool. So we'll be looking into that, of course, and a whole lot more. So stay tuned for that. Of course, I got more reviews. I got more unboxings. I just got Bantam West. I'll be showing that off here shortly. So stay tuned for that. If you haven't subscribed, I'm going to be doing a lot of stuff, especially end of year. It's a really fun time of year. A lot of top 10s, a lot of unboxings, and cool looks at what's coming out in 2024. So stay tuned for that. Subscribe if you haven't. Guys, have a great rest of your day. Take care. Bye, guys.